It turns out the Blues Brothers were right. It's cheaper to keep her around. I had my own business and she didn't work, so alimony was a given. I had two girls I loved more than life itself, so alimony and the pain of never seeing them again were inevitable. Besides, if she really wanted to screw me over, she could have taken half my business in exchange for alimony. I would have been forced to live on 30% of what I earned. I left the solicitor's office in a terrible mood. As usual, Charlene was 3 steps ahead of me when I caught up with her. I've been doing this for 8 months and it hasn't hurt us. He's a damn good lover. No better, no worse, just different. I don't think I could choose between you if I had to, but think carefully before you do anything. Go see a lawyer. Your life will be hell if we break up, I'll make sure of it. I looked at her sitting quietly on the sofa describing my new life. Who is this woman? This isn't my wife, the woman I've lived with for 14 years, the woman I've relied on and trusted more than anyone else in my life. At least now I won't have to hide. You'll still get the lion's share of my time and love, but I won't neglect Jim. He has needs just like you do. I'll make a schedule. That was all I heard before I got up and left. She squealed and followed me out, but fell silent when she saw Mrs. Roseman, the sweet old lady who lived 2 doors down. I smiled and nodded as Charlene turned back to the house and hissed, "Get your ass back here, now!" She watched me leave. I was away for 2 days. The smirk on her face when I returned almost made me turn around and leave. The girls were crazy about me, and I loved them that evening. They were growing up fast, 13 and 11. After meeting with the solicitor, I decided to stay away from them for the time being. When they fell asleep, she brought me a beer. I put it on the table. Damn it, I'll never drink anything she gives me again. I'm glad you came to your senses. I knew you would. We'll live just like we did before, and no one will ever know. The only thing that will change is that I'll have a date on the weekends and I'll come home very late, but I'll come home so the girls won't worry. She leaned back in her chair with her usual smug expression. I quickly knocked it off her face with a rehearsed speech. Who said I've changed my mind? Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to live here for the next 4 years and 8 months until Marisa turns 18. And then I'm leaving. Darcy will be just over 16, so hopefully she'll be okay. Maybe she'll decide to live with me. Either way, I'm leaving. I paused to catch my breath and continued without letting her answer. Now the trash will be in my past. Even if you dump that jerk tomorrow, I'm not going to share a bed with you. It's over, forever. I have a habit of not sleeping with whores, and a woman who entertains other men while married is exactly what I mean. I'm moving into a spare bedroom and won't discuss the matter further. However, I don't plan on remaining celibate. I have my needs, and although I won't be looking, at least for a while, I won't turn down an offer if she's not married. I would never do to some poor soul what you're doing to me. Besides, you'd better find a job or ask your lover to pay for your needs. The girls will get whatever they want, but anything that exceeds the cost of living will never go into our joint account again. I knew that last sentence hurt her deeply. Charlene never missed a sale. Her closets, yes, she had many of them, were filled with clothes she never wore. She had been turning pale, but now she was furious. You bastard! I still love you and want to sleep in the same bed with you. This is ridiculous. Everything will stay the same. There's no other option. Now go get ready for bed. You know, if things don't work out with your mistress, you'll be popular at Patterson in Maine. Maybe you'll think about that when you run out of money for entertainment. At the corner of that street in our small town, men gathered to find a date for the night. She ran to her bedroom, not forgetting to lock the door. I waited a few minutes and opened it. She was lying on the bed with her phone in her hand. She flinched and dropped the phone, and I, realizing who she had been talking to, snatched it up. Hi, bastard. I have your number, and I'll find out your address soon. Maybe someday I'll find you, and we'll talk about what connects us. Don't be afraid, I won't hurt you. Of course, you don't want to get into a serious relationship with her, knowing that she'll cheat on her lover at the first opportunity. He hung up, and I put the phone back in my pocket. She had already come to her senses and was about to leave when the girls showed up. They looked at the broken door frame and asked what had happened. Oh, you know, this door has been sticking lately. I think it's absorbing moisture somehow. I'll fix it tomorrow. You guys go to bed. Charlene didn't say a word. When they left, she went into the house, but I stopped her. I'll keep your phone until tomorrow. And yes, I'll be checking your account on the computer. Good night. She hissed at me as I left. Good luck. My accounts are locked tighter than Fort Knox. You won't find anything, you idiot. I smirked, knowing she had forgotten about the keylogger we had installed on the computer as soon as the children were old enough to use it. I locked myself in my room, activated it, and soon the printer started up. I had to add paper, but I got all her emails, all her search queries, and everything she had bought in the last year. She was incredibly stupid. Even better, he worked as a building inspector in the county. They met when Charlene went to get a permit from my workshop, which was code for a man cave. Whenever there was too much estrogen in the house, I would lock myself in there, play pool, or watch sports on the 50-inch TV. I even got cable. She had to come back twice when I added something that led to flirting, coffee, lunches, and she didn't resist, but sometimes even took the initiative herself. I closed all the printouts, sent the photos and videos to my personal work computer, and went to bed, falling asleep surprisingly soundly. I woke up feeling refreshed, at least that's how it seemed to the girls, and made breakfast while they chatted about school. Boys, 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 music, boys, 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 boys. Boys, 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 boys. Boys, 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 boys. It all blended together, and I hardly paid any attention. After all, they were too young to be serious about anything, thank goodness. Marissa, the 13-year-old girl, was starting to blossom, and the boys noticed. We let her go out in groups with one of the parents supervising. Of course, they could go out in pairs, and we allowed them to do so as long as they didn't do anything stupid. We did this in the hope that when they finally reached the age when they could start dating, they would have a little experience to fall back on and wouldn't do anything stupid. Darcy, or Echo, as we called her because she repeated everything Marissa said, was still too young for such outings at 11, but we made sure they had plenty of opportunities to socialize under adult supervision. All this was in addition to sports training, dance lessons, orchestra, and theater club. One of the cars was always on the move. They were discussing their day's activities when I dropped the first bombshell. Girls, I'm sorry, but I have new responsibilities at work, so Mum will be your main driver for a while. Since she doesn't work, I'm sure she'll be able to spend time with you, won't she, sweethearts? If looks could kill, I would have turned to ash. Instead, she told the girls that they might have to ride with their friends sometimes. Why? What could be so important that you would leave your children to fend for themselves? If you have things to do, you have all morning, don't you, girls? They agreed immediately. Yes, Carol's mum is kind of scary, and Jenny's dad stares at us. Please, Mum. Charlene was puzzled and didn't calm down until they were gone. Apparently, I was right. All her little dates were during the day. Her lover had a job. She got down to it as soon as they got on the bus. If you think so. Exactly. That's the difference between you and me, I think, and it's usually accompanied by a lot of arrogance. Lately, all your mental functions seem to be concentrated in your arse. You'd better start using your head while you still have a chance to have children. One more thing. I installed a sound and video system in the house before I left. Bring that bastard here, and in an hour it will be all over the internet. Consequences be damned. Have a nice day. She was still trying to say something when I left the house. At lunch, I watched the video of her freaking out, screaming and trying to find the cameras. Luckily, even I didn't know where they were. The guy who installed them said that if I knew, I could give them to her. I managed to overhear an interesting phone conversation. Actually, several. The first was to her lover. He's acting like a complete idiot, baby. He ruined our whole day and says he's leaving. I checked this morning. He blocked all my cards. There's $280 left in our account. And today, we have to pay a $200 electricity bill by direct debit. We may have to resort to Plan B. He didn't seem to like Plan B, whatever it was. Before we go down that road, let's give them a few days to cool off. If we abandon them now, I'll be in the same situation as my husband, and we won't gain anything. Obviously, that wasn't the answer she was hoping for. So much for love, huh? You solved the problem by solving everything? How the hell am I supposed to do that? She asked. He replied loudly, I really do love you, but let's be practical. If we leave our spouses, everyone will know why. We'll be broke, you won't have a job, and mine won't be anything to brag about. So, until we pull the trigger, we'll live in nice houses, you'll have everything you want, including me. There's no need to rush. I know he ruined your day, but we could meet for lunch. It won't be perfect, but we can hold out. Where can we meet? He dumped me. I can't pay for a motel room, and I'm not going to sleep with you in your office. Let's do it at your place. Bad idea. I can't find anything, but he says the house is bugged. And if we meet here, it'll be on some amateur website in an hour, and I believe him. No, we just have to stop and give him a chance to calm down. After that, the conversation got a little heated, and when they finished, she sat there with a confused look on her face. Perhaps the perfect life she had imagined for herself had been shattered by reality. But I knew her and understood that if she had made up her mind, hell would freeze over before she would change it. She was that stubborn. I smiled when I checked on her later. She was sitting at her computer, having just realized that I had blocked her. Bastard! She shouted 15 minutes later. Bastard? She listed all the swear words she knew. I was a little impressed. I didn't know she knew so many. I decided to tease her a little and called out to her. Without letting her say a word, I started the conversation. Hi, sweetheart, I said, my words dripping with sarcasm. Having a nice day. You don't need to bother with the computer anymore. If you believe me, I locked it down tighter than Fort Knox. Oh, and here's some more news for you. By the end of the day, your phone will be disconnected. But don't worry, I've ordered you a new one. It'll be here tomorrow. I hope you like it. You bastard, was all she managed to say before I hung up. I heard the rest through the surveillance equipment my strange friend had installed while she was entertaining Laverbeau right after I found them. She smiled when I gave her a new top-of-the-line phone that evening. And the next day, I heard her trying to use it in real time. It had a safety feature designed for children that helped me a lot. She could only call the school, my office, my personal phone, our doctors, her mother, my parents, and 911. Any attempt to call any other number would cause the phone to shut down for 30 seconds, after which it would restart. She discovered this as soon as she tried to call her lover. After the phone restarted, I called her. Hi, I guess you figured out that the phone doesn't work except for the numbers I gave you. It's pretty hard to get in touch with your lover without a phone or a computer. I would apologize, but unlike you, I'm not used to lying. Now that you have a day and a half free, I have a suggestion. Find a job. You'll need it if you want to go shopping. I'll buy the kids everything they need, but you take care of yourself. Maybe you'll finally wear those clothes with the tags still on them. I hung up again before she could say anything interesting. When I got home, she was very cold. It was hard for her to control herself in front of the girls. But as soon as she was sure they were asleep, we went down to the basement, where she screamed and threatened me with all sorts of nasty things until she ran out of breath. I just smiled. Deciding to change tactics, she burst into tears. Please, darling, stop treating me so cruelly. I don't deserve this. Understand, I didn't do it on purpose. It just happened. It's just a fling. I'm sure that sooner or later we'll get tired of each other and I'll love only you again. Before you found out, you weren't hurt, and you won't be hurt now. It's only a few hours a week. The rest of the time, I'm all yours. Let's go to bed. I'll prove to you how much I love you. I think I shocked her when I laughed. You know, I looked on the internet for excuses for cheating. One site recommends a book called The Cheater's Handbook. It gives all kinds of advice on how to have affairs. And there's a whole section on what to do if your spouse finds out. You just used a bunch of excuses. It just happened. It won't affect us. It's just a fling. It'll be over soon. And the best part is that you can threaten to destroy his world if he doesn't agree. I watched as conflicting emotions flashed across her face. Without letting her say a word, I continued. Let's stop for a minute. Let's say I agree to your plan. What does that get me? I'll still be paying all the bills, doing everything a married man does, the only difference being that I'll have to share you. As a businessman, I have to say that doesn't sound very profitable to me, does it? You get to have fun with someone else and I just work and wait for you? That's not going to work. Since you've declared an open marriage, I'm going to look around. We have a very nice sales representative who comes in once a month. She's into fitness and runs marathons. She showed me a photo of herself during her last race. I think when she comes in next week, I'll ask her out to lunch and see if she's interested. I know she's seen my ring, but I'll just explain that we have an open marriage and you've had a lover for almost a year. Who knows? She seems like a pretty liberal girl. I knew she was offended by the joke about solid food. After having 2 children in a few years, she had become a little heavier and softer than when we got married. Of course, she just needed to get off her bum and go to the gym instead of the shopping center. Yes, it was inevitable. She looked shocked. Why? Why would you want someone else when I'm available? You have to understand, dear, I still love you, and the thought of you with someone else upsets me. I responded in kind. I was single for 16 years, but that wasn't enough for you, was it? Do you think I jumped for joy when I found out you were having fun with me? There's a word for men who let their women have fun with other men while remaining faithful, just as there's a name for women who have fun with their husbands. The train of debauchery has officially stopped, woman. Maybe you'll think about that. I'm going to bed. At least one of us has to work. When I left, she was still hissing. I wasn't a complete idiot and realized I needed a plan, and fast, before she started destroying my life. I had an old friend, our neighbor's son, who I found a little awkward to talk to as a child. We were the only boys on the street, so we became close and even friends. He had high-functioning autism and was pretty good with computers and solving abstract problems. If anyone could find a solution to my problems, it was him. He had been developing computer games since he was 14 and sold his first game at 16. Now he was in his 30s, still living with his parents in a 1,000-square-meter mansion, worth about $60 million. And thanks to the success of his new game, he was literally rolling in money. Strangely enough, he was married to another woman with severe autism, whom I had introduced him to a few years ago at one of the few parties I had organized. She was the daughter of one of my biggest clients and usually led a reclusive lifestyle. But after spending most of the day at the spa, she insisted that her father bring her, saying that something important had to happen. Although God had been a little stingy when it came to her mind, he had compensated for it with her body and face. She was insanely beautiful. Glancing at my friend Harry, she took his hand and asked, "Does he nod in June?" He just nodded and continued talking to another guest for another minute, then tapped his glass to get everyone's attention. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that I invite you to our upcoming wedding. The date is 17th June. The place is... He looked at June. She smiled and took his hand. At St. Emmanuel's Lutheran Church on 2nd Street in Broadville. Harry just nodded until someone asked him to introduce his bride and tell how they met. He blushed slightly when she answered again. "I'm June Allison. We met right here in this house at a party." That was the whole story, except that she didn't say it happened right here, right now at this party. She told him what kind of ring she wanted, and the next day he handed her his credit card. She did the rest herself. They had been together for 8 years. Their daughter was 7, and my girls loved and cherished her like the little sister they had always wanted. When I got home, there was a Lexus SUV in the driveway, and the driver was waiting patiently in the kitchen, sipping coffee and chatting with Charlie. When she saw me, she lit up and smiled. Shauna was a black woman, very attractive, a former military woman who had served 2 combat tours and had black belts in 3 martial arts. She was on the local law enforcement-sponsored shooting team and regularly won trophies. She had once worked for me. I thought she was brilliant and very good at her job, but I could see that most of the time she was bored to tears. One day, June came in to talk to me about some social event they were organizing. She arrived unannounced as usual, and I was in a meeting, so Shauna kept her company. By the time I left the meeting, I had lost an employee. In the end, everyone came out ahead. Shauna moved into the mansion, into a small flat with a separate entrance. Despite all their wealth, Harry and June didn't leave the house very often, and Shauna was about to quit, again out of boredom, when some junkie decided it would be a good idea to kidnap a rich man's child and ransom him for money. He succeeded for about 3 minutes, after which Shauna beat him senseless when he tried to carry the drugged star away from the property. The case was hushed up, but he was armed, and CCTV cameras showed him waving a gun as he tried to carry the child away. She was let go with a warning, and from that day on she became Star's bodyguard/nanny. The girls went on holiday with them to exotic places a couple of times. We were invited, but Charlene always found a reason for us to stay home. Harry was surprised, but June wasn't. I saw it coming. She seemed distracted when I was around, and at the last party, I caught her in the garden sitting very close to another guest. She recoiled when I saw them, and I had the feeling that I had just missed her kissing him. When she saw me, she almost ran into the house and didn't leave your side for the rest of the evening. I wanted to say something, but what? Maybe she was just kissing some guy, or maybe not. It wasn't enough. I remembered that evening. At events like that, we usually split up to talk to different people. I noticed she was gone, but I thought she was in another part of the house because suddenly she appeared and stayed with me for the rest of the evening. They thought about my problem, and we talked for a long time. What do you want, Jack? First of all, I want my girls to be in my life. That's the most important thing to me. Besides, I want her to regret what she did. It's over between us. She doesn't realize it yet, but when she does, I expect it to be awful. I don't want to be left with no money and no one when it all settles down. Nodding, he asked how big my house was. They had been there often enough to know, but he didn't ask if he didn't know. We bought the house at a very good price. It was in an old neighborhood with a large lot and lots of mature trees. We bought it for about 60% of its market value because the owner was elderly and hadn't maintained it. She had enough money to live out her days in a nice nursing home, and I got a 4,400 square foot, two-story house with a full basement. We bought it when those girls were still very young, so it was the only home they had ever known. We spent 5 years renovating it with all our savings, and now it was worth twice what we had put into it. Charlie loved the place, and I knew she would do anything to keep it after the divorce. The situation became clear when he asked about the basement. After all the renovations we had done on the house, we hadn't touched the basement, vaguely planning to renovate it someday so the girls could invite their friends over. By my estimate, the basement was almost 1,100 square feet. Remodel it, Jack. Turn it into a beautiful apartment, even with a separate entrance and separate wiring. That way, it will be completely separate from the rest of the house. Then move in. If you get divorced, you'll have your own home and full access to the children. How could she object? Your lives would be completely separate. You'd never see her unless you wanted to. I can't think of a single sane judge who would object to that plan, especially when children are involved. Damn. Why didn't I think of that? Because I'm just a regular guy, not some autistic genius with a collective IQ in the stratosphere. Shauna suggested another option. I can kick her ass, I can kick his ass. I can ruin their lives in ways you can't even imagine, and you won't have to be a part of it. Wow, look at the fire in her eyes. I have a feeling that if I kill her, things are going to get very, very bad. Let's go with plan C, Shanna. I don't mind her getting hurt a little, but she's the mother of my children. Let's do that first, okay? She didn't like it, but she agreed and went to check on the kids. She's in love with you, Jack. Be careful. Now that you're about to be a bachelor, she'll be thinking about something else. I looked at June in surprise. I had always liked Shauna, but I had no idea she felt that way about me. In any case, it was all pretty straightforward. The house was in my name only, which was necessary since I was the sole source of income at the time of purchase. I consulted with several contractors and architects before finding a plan I liked best. On the advice of my solicitor, I tempered Charlie's enthusiasm a little by giving her an allowance. It wasn't unlimited, but it was enough to have lunch with her friends and go shopping. I also had a GPS and anti-theft system installed in her Mercedes. I could remotely disable the engine using my phone or computer. I noticed that her lunches were becoming rather long and drawn out. She would have lunch with her friends and then slip away to a friend's house to spend an hour or two in the bedroom with her lover. The next time she went out for lunch, I tracked her GPS, and as soon as she headed for her love nest, I disabled the car. She called me in a panic. "Jack, the car stalled and won't start. I'm stuck." "Where are you?" She had to tell me where she was, on the other side of town from our house. "What are you doing there?" "I wanted to stop by Beverly's. We went shopping the other day and I left my bag in her car." "Isn't Beverly at work?" "Yes, but she left her bag in the garage." I enjoyed the moment. "Try starting the car again, Charlie. I'm sure it'll start." She did, and drove about 5 blocks before the car stalled again. When she called back, I told her the best thing she could do was try to drive home. She didn't understand at first, but she drove home, surprised that the car hadn't stalled again. When it happened 2 more times, she figured out what was going on. Later, I recorded her shouting, including telling Marissa to get out of the room when she tried to calm her down. Our daughter's hurt look calmed her down, but the damage was done. After that, things were pretty quiet between them. When she asked about the basement, I said it was finally time to fix it up for the girls. They would soon be reaching the age when they would need more space. She took that to mean that I approved of her lifestyle. Charlie spent some of her money on a mobile phone, which I found, and installed a listening device on it. It seemed that trouble was brewing in paradise. Apparently, they were planning to leave their spouses and start a happy family in my house, where I would pay most of the bills. My behavior had thrown a spanner in the works. Maybe we should call it off, at least for now. He's not reacting the way we hoped, and I'm afraid he might do something drastic. He snorted contemptuously. He's just a weakling. You're holding him back because of the children. You know he wouldn't do anything to hurt them. She sighed. Maybe not them, but he'll hurt us. I've seen him at work, and he can be very cruel when he needs to be. He's made my life very difficult, but he hasn't done anything drastic yet. It's different for you. You have a very public job. You work for the district. An affair between a district official and the wife of a well-known local businessman is news. When the newspapers get wind of it, you'll be fired before the ink is dry, and then what will become of us? How will you explain it to your wife? Or have you already told her that you're leaving her for another woman? There was a long pause, and when she spoke, there was a clear note in her voice. I thought so, man, tell her. Until my husband did it himself. And if he hasn't attacked you yet, it doesn't mean he won't. He'll just analyze every fact he can find and hit you where it hurts the most. You'd better be ready because it's bound to happen. Now, I don't want to see you for at least a month. We both need to think, and I need to repair my relationship with my husband as much as possible. If we break up, I want him to be in as good a mood as possible, and I won't put too much pressure on him. He'll be as fair as he can, especially with the girls. I mean it, 1 month. And I'll call you when I'm ready to talk. Well. I had been given a whole month to finalize my plans. I decided to use this time wisely. First, I arranged a meeting with the chairman of the district commission. He and my father had known each other for a long time, not as friends, but as business partners. He thought it might be relevant to my case and agreed to meet me for dinner. We met at an expensive steakhouse outside the city, and I made sure he had a good meal and a couple of drinks before getting down to business. I'm thinking about moving my business, Fred. I've been looking at the Hanover area. There are a lot of vacant buildings that would suit my needs, and the tax breaks are very good. Fred immediately frowned. The thought of losing 89 jobs from his district was not a pleasant one, especially since a few months ago the newspapers had reported on my expansion, which required me to hire about 30 more employees. It wouldn't look good, especially in an election year. Why? Why do you need to do this? The district has always been supportive of you. I don't know what to say, Jack. In the current economic climate, I very much doubt we'll be able to accommodate you. I don't want concessions, Fred. The fact is, I need to change the zoning for the expansion, and I don't think it will be easy, especially when it comes time to get the permits. I repeat, why? You know that the rezoning notices have already been sent out, and no one has raised any objections, so when we vote, it will be a mere formality. And as for the permits, why do you think you'll have any problems? Because your permits and zoning manager is sleeping with my wife and he knows that I know about it. He looked like a deflated balloon. When the scandal broke, it would be very messy, and every department in the county would get at least a small share. Our local newspaper had an investigative reporter who was so good that national newspapers were after him. He was like a bloodhound that had caught the scent of fresh blood. He looked down at the remains of his steak and sighed. The food was a little heavy for him. Are you sure? Video and audio recordings, including the scene where he's being indecent with my wife, and you can see he's in his office. Indecent behavior during working hours and on county property. What do you want? Well, it would be nice if he got fired. Nothing else, at least for now. I have plans to remodel the house that need to be approved, preferably without him knowing. I'll look into it. Maybe the district will decide he needs some training. 3 days? That's enough, Fred. I'll wait until after the election, but then I'm going to burn it. You understand? That will give you enough time to find a reason to get rid of it before I start. We parted, knowing that our relationship had changed forever. From now on, he would wait anxiously for me to ask him for a meeting. Another relationship ruined because of Charlie. The seminar went ahead, and I asked the contractor to draw up the paperwork in his name. Work began the next day. Charlie didn't show much interest. I suspect she had other things on her mind. To her credit, she tried to rekindle our relationship. She gave a long speech about how bored she was, how the children had grown up and she felt less attractive as a woman. She assured me that she didn't condone her behavior, that she had simply met a predator at a difficult time in her life and that it would never happen again. Really? What will happen in a few years when the girls are grown up, go to college and start building their lives, and you're sitting here staring at 4 walls and bored out of your mind? Instead of destroying our marriage, you could volunteer for a charity, join a book club, or get a real job. That would give you a goal to put your energy into, but instead you chose a friend for entertainment. How did you manage that? I won't touch you. Our relationship is on life support and its death is only a matter of time. We won't go out with a bang, more like a whimper. I urge you to think about life after marriage, well, at least for me, because it's going to happen. She ran out of the room in tears. Over the next few weeks, she became a model wife and mother. We went on family outings and even took the kids to Disneyland for a long weekend. I hated it, but the girls and even Charlie seemed to enjoy it. The only thing that was bad was when we went to bed. I booked a room with 2 double beds, making it clear that we would not be sleeping together. She had already hinted at divorce when I handed her the papers. Knowing that the confrontation would be unpleasant, I picked up the girls from school a little early and took them to the park. They weren't little anymore and understood that something was wrong. They also guessed that it was about another man, but they didn't know which parent was to blame. I gently explained to them that their mother and I weren't getting along and that I was leaving. They burst into tears, hugged me, and begged me to stay. I hugged them until they calmed down. I'm not going far, my little ones. I can't live without you. But I'm leaving the house and moving into a new flat I built in the basement. Technically, I'll still be living in this house, but completely on my own. So I put 2 single beds in the second bedroom. It's not as nice as your rooms are now, but it will always be yours. Here are your keys, but please don't give them to your mom. They were a little surprised when I promised that on Saturday they could go shopping and decorate the room however they wanted. Since I didn't know what to expect, I sent the girls to the basement when we got home and told them to look around their room and see what they needed. When Charlie met me at the door, screaming at the top of her lungs, I knew I had made the right decision. She started screaming so loudly that the neighbors called the police. On the advice of my solicitor, I did not enter the house even though it had an alarm and security cameras. When the police officer asked what had caused the argument, I showed her a copy of the divorce papers. I quickly stopped her when I saw the decision in her eyes. Yes, I prepared them so that everything would go smoothly. It may or may not end in divorce, but my lawyer advised me to do this to document the process. And although you can't ask, it's about marital infidelity, hers, not mine. If you don't believe me, I can show you videos and photos. She looked at Charlie, who blushed several interesting shades of red. So what? That doesn't mean that bastard has the right to leave me and our children. Officer, do you mind? I made her follow me into the house and unlocked the gate I had put up. Charlie followed me and demanded to come in, but the policeman, being cautious, asked her to stay outside. I showed her the flat. She was impressed until we opened the door to the girls' room and saw them huddled on the bed, crying quietly. They threw themselves into my arms, and I spent several minutes calming them down. Hush, Mummy's just having a bad day. I'm sure she's calmed down now, haven't she, officer? The officer nodded grimly, then smiled at the girls. Your dad is right, she's much calmer now. Your dad and I will come back and talk to her again to make sure. She said goodbye to them, and we started talking as soon as we got outside. You must be feeling terrible right now, but you did the right thing for your girls. I can't give you any advice other than to always put your children first. If my first husband had been half the man you are, I probably wouldn't still hate him. When we got back, Charlie was much calmer and assured the officer that she wouldn't react to her outburst anymore. It broke her heart that she loved me so much. I'll tell you the same thing I told him. Put your children's well-being first. How you handle this situation will determine how they will view both of you for the rest of their lives. And ma'am, this is just a divorce. It's a long way from being finalized. I can't answer the question of whether you need to go to court to have the marriage annulled. You'll need a solicitor for that. Good luck to both of you. She waved to the officer as she drove away, then turned to me and hissed, To the living room? Now? She headed for the house and I took the opportunity to walk around the house, close the gate behind me, and go inside. I locked the front door with 2 locks and 3 bolts. She would have had to use a battering ram to get in. I did the same with the newly installed lower door, which I had chosen for soundproofing. She could stand upstairs and scream at the top of her lungs, and we wouldn't even know it. The girls stayed with me until bedtime. I assured them that their mother was fine now, and as soon as they left, I called her. Shut up and listen. In a few seconds, the girls will walk through the front door. How you behave with them now may determine how close you will be in the future. So do as I do. Swallow your pride and think of them. I hung up. The girls didn't call. Apparently, the night passed quietly. Charlie hired a solicitor using the card I had left her and got a hearing in the magistrate's court. The magistrate was a woman of about 40 with tired eyes. Seeing families torn apart and constantly using their children as pawns must be very exhausting. Mr. Sayers, why are you filing for divorce? Because, Your Honor, my wife, by her own admission, has been having an affair with another man for at least 9 months. When I found out, she told me she had no intention of ending the affair and that I should just accept it. Perhaps I could have done so if it had been just the two of us, but we have two daughters, aged 11 and 13, and I wasn't sure I wanted to expose them to that kind of lifestyle at such a tender age. If my wife disputes any of this, I can provide you with video and audio evidence, Your Honor, all obtained legally. She looked at Charlie, who had his head down. Turning to me, she seemed to smile slightly. I understand you have moved out of the house, Mr. Sayers. How would you estimate the distance to your daughters? 26 steps, ma'am. I converted the basement into an apartment. It is completely separate from the rest of the house. I have no reason to enter the house without an invitation, and the same restrictions apply to my wife. Only by invitation. She turned to Charlie. Well, it looks like you'll have some decisions to make, Mrs. Sayers. If you really want to save your marriage, you need to think about your recent decisions. If this were a divorce, I would advise you to see a counselor. However, this is only a trial separation, and you may get back together in the end, so I don't see the point and can't find any legal grounds for further action, so I wouldn't plan anything. The separation papers were filed correctly, so they remain in force. After 90 days, he can extend it, cancel it, or file for divorce. I wish you both the best of luck. We were led out of the office to the car park. You're really angry, aren't you? What a stupid question. Yes, but not that much. Mostly I feel sad. I always thought the only way we would break up was with one of us holding the other's hand as we walked past each other. Now I know that will never happen. My anger tells me to tell you that I wasted years on you, but we have daughters, so it will never be a complete waste of time. I got into the car without waiting for her answer. As I pulled out of the parking lot, I looked in the rearview mirror and saw her sitting in her car, crying. Before, I would have hugged her and told her that no matter what happened, we would always be there for each other. Now I just sighed and turned away. For the next 3 weeks, we lived side by side, her upstairs, me downstairs. Charlie was upset that the girls wouldn't let her into my flat and tried to pressure them, but they stood their ground. Finally, one day, I knocked on her door. She seemed surprised to see me. I hadn't seen her or spoken to her since the trial. Without letting her say a word, I gave her instructions. Follow my instructions. The girls have learned how to cook on the gas grill and have made dinner for us, so follow me, and don't ruin their dinner. She obediently followed me. The girls, dressed in large aprons and chef's hats they had found somewhere, hugged her and led her to our picnic table, where we fed them herb-roasted chicken, roasted vegetables, corn on the cob, and tomato salad. They even had dessert, cheesecake they had made from a mix. Charlie, to her credit, didn't say a word, praised the girls for their cooking skills, and helped her clear the dishes. Echo showed her the apartment, including their room. Marissa was used to sleeping downstairs most of the time. Echo only stayed upstairs on weekends. I knew the flat was much smaller than what they were used to, so as a compromise, I limited their access to the man cave. They hooked up a game console to a huge TV, and on Fridays and Saturdays, they invited friends over to sleep over on air mattresses. Mostly girls, but sometimes boys would come over, and 1 or 2 moms would stay with them until the boys left. Sometimes it was Charlie. They mostly ate pizza, but sometimes the girls would barbecue under my supervision, mostly hamburgers and hot dogs, and if there weren't enough, chicken or pork. Summer was approaching, school was almost over, so I splurged and bought a huge swimming pool, which made them even more popular. Most of the parents knew about our life, but never commented. Some mothers hinted, and one said outright that she wouldn't mind joining. I thanked them as politely as I could and promised to keep them in mind if I didn't have a date. This annoyed Charlie, especially when they did it in front of her. One evening, after the parents and children had left, she gave me a sharp telling off. What were you thinking? That slut climbed onto your lap while you were eating. Do you know how embarrassed I was? Not really. Do you think it's as humiliating as finding out that your spouse is having an affair, and all her friends know about it and even provide alibis and places to further destroy the marriage? If so, I can emphasize that. Besides, we may have been a little close, but it was pretty crowded at the picnic table, and her daughter and both of mine were right next to us. Charlie looked shaken. Despite all her carefully laid plans, she couldn't have foreseen this situation. Of course, it was nothing. I wasn't going to do anything that could be used against her in the divorce when it came. But it was still nice to pull her chain a little. I tried to avoid any contact with Charlie, although I still monitored her phone calls and filmed her daily life. Apparently, the fact that she had two lovers at the same time and none for 3 months was bothering her. After a while, it became amusing, but also sad in many ways. After her release, she often cried in her sleep. She still had her mobile phone and didn't know that I had tapped it and removed the restrictions on her regular phone. I remember her shock when a telemarketer called her, and she hurriedly called everyone she could think of to make sure the phone was working. She took it as a sign that I had softened and things were getting better, rather than a death blow to our marriage. If she had thought about it, the fact that I no longer cared about her communication with her lover would have made her think twice. The election was over. The county manager resigned, and the new appointee promised the commissioners that he would clean up all the county's budgets. Bob was quietly fired. He gave in to the administrator and turned to the county commissioners. They met with him in the conference room and showed him the clip I gave them, where he explains in detail what he plans to do to Charlie at their next meeting. That's it, Bob. The owner of this video is threatening to release it and sue the county for allowing the manager to have an affair and use county computers and phones for games. Unusual games. All we have to do to stop this is fire you without a recommendation. If we don't, we'll all be in a very awkward position. We'll probably have to pay this guy a lot of money to keep his mouth shut. And we'll make sure you're charged with as many offenses as our solicitor sees fit. Your chances of ever getting a job in another county or municipality would be zero. And finding a job in the private sector in any management position would be very, very difficult. Do us all a favor, Bob. Think about what you've learned and leave. He had no choice, and the local newspaper didn't even mention his departure. He simply disappeared. Charlie called me, torn between anger and remorse. Did you have to do that? He has small children. How will he support them? Shouldn't he have thought about all that before deciding it was a good idea to sleep with you? I feel sorry for his kids, but his wife has a good job now, and she should be able to handle the alimony. His wife is a housewife. Not anymore. I think she has an accounting degree. And a local company hired her pretty quickly. I hear it's a pretty good job. Who would hire a man who hasn't worked in 6 years and give him such a good job? I would, I replied, and hung up the phone. Bob's wife was a plump, pretty woman with a permanent smile on her face. I had to destroy her world to finally knock her off her high horse. What am I going to do now? That was our only income. How am I going to support the children? Her eldest daughter was in school, and her 3-year-old was trying to climb on me while I tickled her. You'll work for me. They say I'm a good boss. Even if you don't want to, I'll help you. It's not my fault he betrayed your marriage and put you in this position, but whether it's my fault or not, I feel responsible. This offer doesn't commit you to anything. My children are grown up and know everything, but it still hurts them deeply. I'm doing everything I can to ease their pain, but I can't take it away completely. Of course, this is just in case you want to leave. If you want to support him, I will pray for you. But I have to tell you that it all seems too smooth and practical for his first time. I am grateful for your patience and apologize for the information I had to share with you. If you decide to divorce, I can help you with the evidence. I left, trying to hold back my tears as she hugged her daughter. 3 days later, she called me. In a restrained, tense voice, she said that he wasn't going to tell her that he'd been fired and that it was all because of her affair until she threw it in his face. I thought he was going to hit me, so I smiled and said, "Go ahead, hit me. The bruises will help him go to prison and me get a restraining order." I told him it would be a fitting end to a terrible situation. He ran away, and I haven't seen him since. But he doesn't have any money because on the same day you told me what was going on, I withdrew all the money from my accounts. And I didn't do it out of spite. Well, at least not out of spite. He has 2 small children, and they need him. I wasn't going to let them lose everything because of his mistakes. I have enough money to live on for 3 months. Is the job offer still open? She started work the following week. I was impressed by her insight, and we agreed that she would spend half her time in the office and the rest working from home. This was a great help to her with the children. My employees weren't idiots, and when Charlie's photo disappeared from my desk and was replaced by one of me and the girls, they all understood and even offered cautious condolences. All except one. Misty despised Charlie for thinking she was trying to flirt with him and made a scene at a company party. Misty left in tears, and the next morning when she sobered up, I gave Charlie a good talking to. Looking back, I realized that this was right after she started dating Bob. I guess it rubbed off on her. If she was making it up, so was I. I threatened to cut Charlie off financially for a month until she came into the office and apologized to Misty. Misty accepted the apology, and they hugged to show there were no hard feelings. I saw most of their faces, and the pats on the back looked like they were looking for a soft spot to stab. She walked into my office with a smirk. I just found out. You can fire me if you want, boss, but I'm glad. You're too good a man for that bitch. You never noticed, but she's always been damn cruel to women when you weren't around. We'll divide up the cards and decide who's next after you. I never told you, but when I was in school, I worked as a dealer in a casino on the coast, and if I get my hands on the cards, those whores won't stand a chance. I love romantic movies, French cuisine, and long, slow massages with warm, aromatic oils. Misty was a slender, red-haired girl, confident and able to dress to attract attention without breaking office norms. She was 12 years younger than me, and in a serious relationship with a nice guy who I assumed she would marry sooner or later. I had already promised to walk her down the aisle and pay for the honeymoon, within reason. So I knew she wasn't serious. I shocked her by responding to her joke with a joke, since we were alone. I think I'll take you up on that. I've always wondered if your carpet matches your curtains. She put her hand over her mouth, giggled, and ran for the door. Turning around, she looked me straight in the eye. It would have, but I took the carpet up because I decided I liked bare floors better. If you don't believe me, ask Jerry. I promised her it would be our first topic of conversation when we met again, and listened to her laugh as she walked down the hall. I smiled all day and wasn't as serious as usual. The other ladies noticed, and Misty must have let it slip because every time I was in a bad mood or angry, one of them would say something to cheer me up. I realized the situation was out of control when our 60-year-old secretary told me she was from a different generation and asked what I thought of shaggy wool carpets. Charlie was desperate, climbing the walls, lonely, without a lover, without a husband, with no way out except lunches with her friends. And after I nearly destroyed her best friend's marriage by telling her husband that his wife had allowed Charlie to use their house to continue their affair, neither of them would even talk about her situation or, for that matter, defend her. Her husband forgave her, and the rest of her friends were on thin ice when it came to Charlie. A month later, I opened the door and saw Charlie on her knees begging me to just talk to her. I considered about 20 very cruel responses before opening the door and stepping into the living room. A few seconds later, she followed me, looking around warily as if afraid of an ambush. Beer? She nodded, and I picked up a glass and poured her one. She took a sip and examined the glass closely. What is this? Real ale, imported. If you don't like it, I have a few other varieties you might like. Are you trying to get me drunk? I glanced at my watch. I had 3.5 minutes before she had a chance to get angry with me. No, I'm not in the mood for noise. I've decided to go for quality over quantity. Besides, I drink beer, I don't guzzle it. I usually go through 12 bottles in 2 weeks. I'm afraid it's affected my relationships with women. If you looked in my fridge, you'd see that it's mostly soda, root beer, and exotic fruits. What about you? Have you started drinking more wine? I knew from the cameras that she drank almost a bottle a day, much more than when we lived together. She blushed, surprising me with her candor. Yes, it helps me get through the lonely nights, but I've realized that and I'm drinking less. Why are you lonely? A person in love is officially considered half lonely. Why not go out and have some fun? Scratch that itch, so to speak. She looked shocked. Doesn't that bother you? No more than when you did it when we were still living together. At least you're officially divorced and he's in the process of getting divorced, so there will be far fewer complications. She lowered her eyes and I hoped it was out of embarrassment. We haven't been together for a long time. I knew Bob had left a long time ago. He got a job in a small county a mile and a half away from us. His salary was about 2/3 less than what he made here, and his alimony was calculated based on his previous salary. It was very difficult to pay it every week. If she wanted to have fun, one of them had to drive at least 3 hours. Besides, she said, I know you know a lot more than you're letting on, so I'm sure you understand that it's not his fault. To be honest, the mere thought of being with him again makes me sick. If I had the chance to start over, I wouldn't give him the time of day. He wasn't worth what he cost me. He didn't cost you anything, Charlie. You're the one who made a fortune when you threw him in my face and threatened to take everything away from me if I didn't let you continue. She was choking, and her sobs threatened to turn into loud cries. For some reason, this made me angry. Stop it, Charlie. All the tears in the world won't fix this. You didn't come here for no reason. What do you want? She lifted her head, her face surprisingly determined. I want one thing. You. I want you to come back. I want you to hold me close, stroke my ear like you used to, and tell me everything will be okay. I want you and the girls to be with me, wrapped up in blankets on that big sofa, eating popcorn and laughing at whatever film we're watching until they fall asleep, snuggled up to one of us. I want to feel loved again, not empty and hollow, just counting the days. I know my promises mean nothing to you right now, but I'm asking you to give me a chance to start over, to be better. That little speech must have hit her hard. She sighed and stood up. Think about it. I'm not expecting an answer right now. Before I go, give me a hug, just for a second. Charlie looked lost and unhappy, so I hugged her and let her cry on my shoulder for a few minutes. Finally, she pulled away, thanked me, and left. I sat on the sofa for a long time until Marissa came in and asked where dinner was. I pointed to the menu posted on the board near the refrigerator. Take your pick. She must have called Darcy because she came downstairs and spent a long time discussing Chinese food, fried chicken, pizza, or hamburgers before settling on a Creole dish. You can call Mom and ask if she wants to join us. If you want, of course. Darcy ran upstairs and returned 10 minutes later, followed by Charlie. They argued until I reminded them that if they didn't call soon, it would be too late. They decided to agree and left, returning with a rented film and asking if they could watch it in the man cave after dinner. I ate my black and blue salad, enjoying the combination of seared steak and crumbled blue cheese, watching them chat and try everything, including my dish. Darcy plucked up her courage and ordered some alligator bites, which turned out to be delicious. When we were full, we went into the house and sat down on the leather sofa with the children between us, just like in the old days. They chose a novel, and I laughed at it until Darcy poked me in the side, telling me to shut up so they could enjoy the book. None of the girls finished the book because they fell asleep, snuggled up against us. When I looked at them, I saw that Charlie was crying quietly, trying not to wake Marissa. We kissed, and I sent them home to my mother, saying I wanted to stay there for a while. Everyone, even Charlie, kissed me goodbye. I sat there for a long time thinking, would I ever be able to trust her again? What would I do if I trusted her and she turned out to be a bitch again? Could my heart take another blow like that? Sleep came quickly, and the next morning I was found lying on the sofa in the men's room. I went to take a shower while they watched the film. I have to admit, Charlie really tried. She cooked my favorite meals and didn't complain when I didn't always accept her invitations. My relationship with the girls grew stronger, especially when school started and she began taking them shopping. I always gave Marissa one of my cards and Charlie, out of habit, used it, even buying herself a couple of outfits. I didn't complain because it wasn't what she used to spend. She still had her pocket money and one card, and she was learning to live on the budget I had given her. She surprised us all when she came up to me and asked for a favor. I've been thinking a lot about my life, Jack. I think I'm going to take your advice and find a job or something useful to do on a voluntary basis. If I do, will you look after the girls if you need to? I gave her a big hug and praised her. She had also been going to the gym, and it was starting to show. She was getting back into her old soccer mom shape. I always praised her for her progress and even gave her extra money for sportswear and a few new outfits. Charlie volunteered at a large charity organization, helping to organize events ranging from races to formal balls and dinners. For the first 2 or 3 months, these were mostly daytime events, usually on weekends. Most of the time, she was accompanied by one or the other of the girls, sometimes both. Sometimes I went with her too, and she seemed to enjoy it. When the weather got cooler, they moved to more indoor venues where events were held mainly in the evenings. I went with her to some of them. It was fun, and I got to talk to her a little, but it took too much energy to do it regularly and run the company at the same time, so I cut my visits down to once every 3 weeks. Charlie didn't seem bothered until I asked her how she would feel if I got up early in the morning and dragged her to work, even though she still had to go to her job and had hardly slept. On the second day, she would usually have breakfast with us, showing us photos of all the beautiful people on her phone. I didn't pay much attention to it, preferring to trust her and believing that she had learned her lesson. The video cameras were still in place, but I had stopped checking them a few weeks ago. We gradually grew closer, and I almost came to terms with her actions, believing that she was truly sorry and knew what would happen if she slipped up again. But pride does not precede a fall. Complacency does. One day, June called me and asked me to bring the children over for the weekend, and me too if I wanted to. Charlie had a 2-day event, so we kissed her, wished her luck with her project, and even invited her to come to their mansion and stay the night. She declined, saying she'd be too tired to drive the extra 35 miles, wished us a good time, kissed us goodbye, and waved until we were out of sight. Harry and June met us at the door. "You're an idiot when it comes to women, Jack. You know that, don't you? Shauna is furious because she was sending you all kinds of signals when the problems with Charlie started, and you didn't respond. I know that with your old-fashioned sense of honor, you wouldn't even touch another woman until you're divorced, but she doesn't understand why you didn't just let Charlie go. If I did that, I'd be just like Charlie. Besides, I did everything with the children in mind and couldn't afford even a hint of scandal if I got full custody. How are things with Charlie?" "Much better. She's not sitting at home anymore, she's playing sports. She's much more careful with money, she's even volunteering for a large charity. I haven't moved in with her yet, but I stay over sometimes. I'm very optimistic about the future." Harry sighed, and June didn't look at me. "We need to talk, Jack, after the girls go to bed." That ruined my mood for the rest of the evening. The girls didn't notice that I was silent, and after dinner we hurried to watch a film in the media room, which seated 32 people. We went to the bar, which was decorated like a Western saloon. He brought us a couple of beers, and June brought a glass of wine, which she preferred. I tried it, expecting something exceptional for 600 pounds a bottle, but to me, it tasted like a 20-pound bottle. We sat and sipped our wine. I knew it was best not to rush them. They would say what they wanted to say when they were ready. Finally, June began. "You know that we make significant donations to several charities, don't you? Especially since we can write most of it off our taxes. We prefer to give money to organizations that can really make the world a better place rather than letting the government waste it. Charlie has asked us several times about her new position, and we've always sent her a generous check." I suddenly realized that I didn't like where this was going. We sometimes go to events for these charities like the Show Your Colors campaign. Their logic is that if we support them publicly, it might influence others. About a month ago, we went to a dinner in tuxedos that cost £1,000 a head, with all the proceeds going to charity. Charlie was there, behind the scenes, coordinating everything. She was busy, and we didn't get a chance to talk. I don't think she even noticed we were there. The evening was coming to an end, the tables were cleared, and the orchestra set up for those who wanted to dance. We were about to leave when I saw her again. "Look," she showed me a photo of Charlie in a dress I had never seen before, and standing next to her was a guy. "David Duncan," June answered my unspoken question. "He's a pretty wealthy man. He goes to events like this hoping to get rich and loves to seduce married women. He's very handsome, Jack. He even tried his tricks on me once or twice, but then he gave up." I took advantage of the opportunity, went back to Harry, showed him the photo, and we somehow blended in with the crowd, which isn't that difficult in a crowd of 500 people, where all the men are in tuxedos and the women are in dresses. We took a few more photos, all in inappropriate poses, some worse than others. That's why we wanted you to be here. It's not our life, but you're one of our oldest friends, so we decided to tell you. What you do with this information is up to you. We just don't want you to make the same mistake. Most couples would never have told you about this, following some strange belief that bearers of bad news should not interfere, only to pounce on you, with sympathy and support when everything went wrong. However, these people were true friends, and a small change in their thinking prompted them to speak up now, to give me the information and time to think about my choice. If there were a way to rewire the rest of the world to think like them, everything would surely be much better. I nodded, lost in thought. The first betrayal had hurt me deeply, but this, after everything we had been through and all the promises she had made, hurt me to the core. There was no doubt that our marriage was over. My emotions were still running high, so I thanked Harry and June, bowed, and headed for bed. I thought I wouldn't sleep all night, but as soon as my head hit the pillow, I fell asleep like a log. I woke up at 6 in the morning and lay there thinking about what to do. There was no doubt that the divorce would be back on. On Monday, I would call my solicitor and get started. I didn't know when I would tell Charlie and the girls, but I wasn't going to waste any time. It was time to move on. I would go my way and she would go hers. I would live in the basement until Marissa finished school, and maybe Darcy would move in with me when I moved out. If Charlie had any sense, which judging by her actions she didn't have much of, she would agree, if only for the girls' sake. But then again, she wasn't known for being easy to get along with. Time would tell. We spent the next 2 days watching the girls entertain themselves, although we did join in their fun. June decided she wanted horses, so they built a stable with 6 stalls and filled it to capacity. I was a little wary of such huge animals, but the ones they bought were known for their intelligence and gentle nature. Harry discovered he was allergic to horses, so June, Shauna, the girls, and I saddled up and spent a pleasant morning riding around the neighborhood. June ordered a picnic at the gazebo by their favorite pond, which was more like a small lake. Harry joined us with his fishing rods, and I fished for a few hours before we returned. The pond was well stocked, and we both adhered to the catch and release principle, so we enjoyed the fight with the perch. And then, as carefully as we could, removed the hooks and released the fish so they could grow for the next fight. While we were fishing, we talked about business. I owed my company to Harry. He and June insisted that I start it, all because of what I had done for June out of the goodness of my heart. June suffered from dry skin, not severely, but enough to cause her discomfort at times. One casual comment made me think. I was a civil engineer specializing in plumbing systems for multi-story buildings. Office, industrial, residential, or mixed use. After thinking about her problem, I went to the man cave when it was still just a workshop and built what we called the wall. It was a single shower wall with protruding nozzles positioned 4 inches from the knees to the neck. They pulsed and vibrated, dispensing soap and water first, then rinse water, and finally body lotion. This allowed you to wash, massage, and apply lotion at the same time, a universal tool for maintaining cleanliness. A side effect was that when a woman washed her hair while leaning over the vibrating heads, which acted on strategic points, she experienced a very pleasant sensation. The water pressure and temperature, vibration intensity, and warmth of the lotion were controlled by a small touchscreen on the shower door, with 6 programmable settings for each family member. We didn't mention this in our advertising, but several articles appeared in women's magazines praising the feeling of cleanliness that this installation provided. Harry allowed me to install a prototype for June, and she liked it so much that she showed it to her friends, after which women started coming to her house to wash. Eventually, Harry wanted his bathroom back and told them to buy their own. June called me with 7 orders that needed to be delivered as soon as possible. I shocked her by saying that I had neither the time nor the desire to make more, that it was just a nice gesture for my friends. This led to a long conversation about how much the invention had cost me and whether it was safe. Harry immediately provided me with his solicitor to obtain patents and draw up the Articles of Association for a limited company. We rented a small industrial space, and I hired 2 guys to help build bathrooms for June's friends. We installed all the custom-made walls in the bathrooms and received rave reviews. All of their friends were wealthy, which was good because they weren't cheap. It wasn't about keeping up with the Joneses, but rather the Gateses and Buffetts. Harry and June lent me $500,000 to get started, and from that point on, things took off. For the first 2 years, we worked solely on word of mouth and magazine articles. Eventually, we installed our designs for many actors, athletes, singers, and writers, even 2 former first ladies. 5-star hotels began installing them in their luxury suites. One former NFL quarterback was so impressed that he asked me to make a portable device and put it in his former team's locker room. It stayed there for 2 months until the coach removed it to stop fights over who would be next. My company built a very large device that could fit 5 people at a time and installed it in every locker room of every soccer team and most colleges. Then, hockey players, basketball teams, virtually every sport that requires muscle strength. Harry was smart enough to get a lawyer to obtain international patents, and we sued companies in France and Portugal, eventually getting their assets, and Harry wanted to go international after the divorce. So they came up with a way to shield the company from Charlie's influence. That suited me fine. I wasn't angry enough to ruin her life, but I was angry enough not to reward her. In fact, after consulting with lawyers, I sold the company to Harry, making a nice profit after debts were paid off. I continued to work there as a manager with a very good salary. Everything was very transparent, and when we divorced, I intended to offer her 60% of our property in exchange for all other claims such as alimony and child support. I had already calculated how much this would cost with my new salary, and every week I deposited this amount into an account for the final division, to be used if the children needed anything. I gave her the house, $800,000, after the girls turned 18, so they would have a roof over their heads, and agreed to pay all the utility bills until she gets married. My lawyer told me I was being too nice, but when I replied that I was thinking of the girls, not Charlie, he fell silent. In the end, she got the house and 2.5 million. It would have been difficult for her to refuse, but she refused. I watched the CCTV cameras as she was handed the documents and sat down at the dining table to open the envelopes. The first one contained the divorce papers, the second one a photo of her with her new lover. I left her a note. I was ready to forgive you, Charlie, thinking you had learned your lesson and would never slip up again. Apparently, I was wrong, wasn't I? I'm offering you a very favorable deal, Charlie, and you'll come out of it as clean as a whistle. Just sign the papers, and we can both move on with our lives. There's no need to fight for custody. We'll share custody until they reach the age of majority. In return, I'll continue to live in the flat until Marissa turns 18. Then, Darcy can live wherever she wants. She'll be 16 and able to make her own decisions. Read the papers, take them to a solicitor of your choice, and ask them to check everything. Please don't be stupid. At the end of the day, Charlie, this won't do you any good and it will cost you money that you might want to save. Good luck in your future relationships, just don't use me as a reference. Yes, I sent his wife the same photos that my lawyer had and the ones I gave you. Be careful. This is the state of alienation, and a good lawyer could easily get most of your new divorce settlement. I hope she won't be so cruel. I didn't feel the need to sign it. Charlie begged, Charlie begged, Charlie begged, Charlie begged, Charlie begged, Charlie begged, but Charlie got nowhere. Please, Charlie, don't quote every possible excuse from the cheater's handbook. You wanted someone else, and you got him. I refuse to be your backup. It's over. Let's not make life difficult for the girls. Sign the papers, and in a few years, when the children are grown, I'll leave, and we'll only see each other at their weddings and christenings. She cried. Then she got angry. Her lawyer was quite clever, and when she saw what I was offering, she advised me to take the money and live happily ever after, explaining that Charlie had come to her because she was one of the best, and the best don't come cheap. I could end up getting more than you and wonder if it was worth it. Don't lower your standard of living because of a loss, Charlie. You cheated twice, and he has documents to prove both instances. This isn't a no-fault state. He can charge you with adultery if you insist, and you'll get a lot less, and I'll still have to pay. I agree. She filed a counterclaim for emotional abuse and claimed that I had affairs with Shanna and Brenda, Bob's ex-wife. Brenda threatened to sue her for defamation and insult to her honor and dignity. Shauna showed up at her door and said there would be trouble if she didn't stop. It's not me, bitch. I've got a lot of friends left from my old unit, and believe me when I tell you, we're a bunch of angry bitches. I'm not even going to talk about what the guys can do to you. I see a lot of robberies in your future. You could disappear. I've heard that third world countries pay good money for pretty white bitches, and one of my guys has connections. He'd be happy to take care of you. Use your head, not your ass, woman, while you still have a choice. By this point, Charlie had her back against the wall, his hand pressed against her throat. One more thing. When this is all over, I'm going after him. He's a good man who would never have survived in my old world, and that attracts me. A kind, gentle, strong man is exactly what I'm looking for. I'm still young enough to have children, and I'm sure we'll have adorable chocolate-colored babies. Just watch out, bitch! She left, leaving Charlie gasping for air and staring at the growing stain on his jeans. I didn't find out about it until much later. The next day, she stopped her actions. A few weeks later, I was surprised when an unfamiliar woman came to work and asked me for a few minutes, saying it was about my divorce. I turned on the video and audio recording and invited her into my office. I sometimes used it during negotiations. I noticed that suppliers and customers sometimes forget certain things when it comes to contracts. She was a very attractive woman, perhaps 10 years older, but she looked her age. I stood up, shook her hand, and walked over to the sofa next to the conference table. I wanted her to feel at ease. I'm sorry to drop in unannounced, Mr. Sayers. I'm Barbara Duncan. I believe your wife knows my husband. It was clear. It was her husband who had been having an affair with Charlie. I took her hand. I'm in an awkward position having to apologize for my wife's behavior, Mrs. Duncan. She shook her head. I'm sure it's not your fault, and I know it's not mine. These were two grown men, both, as I discovered, with a history of infidelity. They had probably seduced each other. I came to ask you for a favor. It seems you have photographs and statements that I could use in the divorce proceedings. Would you be willing to share them with me? Give me the name of your solicitor and I'll send them over. She sighed. I don't have one yet. When everything went wrong, he took all the money, leaving me with only the house and clothes for my son. I didn't have a job, and my future looked bleak. Once again, I found myself in an unusual situation where I had to clean up after my wife. I dialed the number and asked her to hold on. John, I have another client. The wife of that jerk? Tell her when she can come and I'll send her over. And John, I'll pay you. Give her a discount. What? I thought so, you greedy bastard. Here's her number, text her when you're free. Barbara looked shaken and I grinned. Don't worry, he's very good and I can afford it. It's the least I can do. You don't know me, but if I can ever help you, please let me know. She sat down, her lips trembling. Please don't cry. Don't cry, she began. I gave her a handkerchief, let her cry for a while, and thought, Brenda was at her house right now, and if anyone knew what she was going through, it was her. I called and she came into the office. Brenda, Barbara, you have something in common. My wife slept with both of your husbands. I'll be right back. I gave them 15 minutes. When I returned, both women sat me down on the sofa. Then they both kissed me. I didn't expect that turn of events. I sat there beaming, with different shades of lipstick on my cheeks. I told Barb what a nice guy you are and that when the divorce is final, I'm coming after you. Don't look so shocked. You know you're my hero. Now focus. Barb needs a job until the divorce is finalized. She's perfect for that new position you were talking about. She has a degree in international relations and speaks French, Italian, and German. Looks like I found you a new director of international marketing. You can thank me with a big bonus in your next paycheck. And remember, I'm your chief accountant, so I know how much you can pay her. Don't make me adjust the figures. Charlie literally went berserk. What's wrong with you? Is this some kind of revenge for treating me like shit and giving these bitches all your support? Man, you're pissing me off. I've reached the end of the line with her. Charlie, shut up. Shut up right now. Do you hear me? Because if you don't shut up, the offer is off, and I'll make you fight for every bone in your body. Do you think when I married you, I imagined I'd be spending my time supporting women whose lives you've ruined? No, I didn't. This is your fault, Charlie. And I'm done with you. Don't talk to me anymore, and if you want, you can talk to my lawyer. Don't worry about the girls. They'll tell me if they need anything. Do you hear me? She started crying again. But dear, I'm sure. I cut her off. I'll tell you what you can be sure of. You can be sure there's going to be a divorce. You can be sure that before the ink is dry on the papers, I'll be looking for someone else. Girls need positive role models. So go out and ruin another marriage, or 2 or 3. When you're done destroying the lives of those who thought they had one, send them to me, and I'll do my best to pick up the pieces. Maybe they can start a club or something. I'm sure they'll accept me as an honorary member. God knows I have the experience. Goodbye, Charlie, and I mean that literally. My anger must have frightened her because she backed into a corner, her eyes wide, and didn't make a sound. I didn't even close the door when I left. The girls hated it. I tried to shield them, but somehow they found out. They didn't see their mother for 3 weeks until I persuaded them to go away for the weekend. She's still your mother. She didn't abandon you, and she still loves you. I'm sure it kills her not to be able to see you. I know it's going to be hard, and if after a while you don't want to stay, come back. Do it for your family. Darcy, her 11-year-old eyes looking old, sighed. We're leaving, but you're wrong, Dad. She betrayed us just like she betrayed you, and she took away our normal family. She'll never be the same. We did things with you, with her, but we'll never do them together. We won't have any memories together anymore. I love you, Dad. She hugged me tightly and took the longest 26 steps of her young life. Damn, when did kids get so smart and tired of life? Maybe I'll have to get a therapist for them and for all of us. 11 months and about $600,000 later, she gave in. She asked for an hour to talk before signing the papers, and I called her. What can you say that will change the situation? If you're sorry, I'll accept your apology. Otherwise, sign the papers. I'm not going through another drama. Darcy was now 12 and a half and had grown into a rare beauty. Marissa, who was almost 15, looked like a 20-year-old model. People still came to the pool parties and the men's den, and when the boys showed up, the mothers circled their nests like hawks. The girls didn't disappear with them. Charlie never invited me over. I was still paying all the bills for the house and planned to keep doing so until Junior went to college. I changed the terms of the agreement a little. Instead of going to Charlie, as in the first divorce settlement, The house was to be sold and the proceeds divided equally. Charlie would still have enough to live on if he was careful with his money. The ink on my divorce papers wasn't even dry yet when Brenda, true to her word, came after me. I stopped her as gently as I could. I'd love to, Brenda, but you work for me, and if things don't work out between us, it could be very, very awkward. I'll quit. You'll have my resignation letter in your email in about 5 seconds. I couldn't help laughing. Oh, you love your job, and while you're really good at it, no one will pay you as much as I do. I can marry a bank? You can, but it'll take a long time if it happens at all. Please stop. I knew she was flying to France the next morning. Pull yourself together, Barb. Maybe you'll find a Frenchman and fall in love. Anyway, there's a Pierre Jean-Claude out there somewhere who's pining for you and looking for you. Barbara took my suggestion literally, found a Frenchman, and moved to Nice to head up the company's European division. Sieste la vie. I lasted about 9 months. I dated a few women I met through friends and at various social events, made sure my equipment was still working. But apart from physical pleasure, nothing special happened. Harry and Jane took care of me as best they could. I visited the girls a few times and we had a good time. Shauna left them, saying that although she loved them and Star, it was time to move on. I was a little disappointed, and they grinned. 13 months after the divorce, Charlie got engaged to a man she met through volunteer work. After her affair and divorce became public knowledge, the charity she worked for asked her if she would like to be more useful elsewhere, and she took the hint and left. I ran into him a few times at the post office, and he seemed like a decent guy. The nice thing was that he was single when they met, so she didn't ruin any marriages. I wondered how honest she had been about her past, but that was none of my business. The girls loved him, he had a sense of humor, and he didn't try to be a father to them. Sometimes he took them to the cinema or out to dinner while their mother was at work. Strangely, I didn't feel threatened and was glad they were getting along. One day they came home looking sad, and over the course of the evening it all became clear. Josh had left them. He had broken off their engagement. I asked if they knew why. Is it true, Dad? It's Mom. What do you think happened? I had become so accustomed to this that I didn't flinch with disgust when I met Charlie. I could talk to her politely but not encourage her. I had long since removed all the tracking devices because it was no longer my business. But I admit that when Josh showed up, I was tempted to turn them back on. Was she making the same facial expressions and sounds she did during our intimate moments? Was she trying harder with him? Fortunately, I didn't give in to the temptation. 17 months after the divorce, I came home and saw an old friend on the sofa. Shauna was in town and had stopped by to see the girls. Marissa had just turned 16. I had bought her a cult car, and she was telling me all about it. I hadn't expected her to choose a 4-wheel drive, but it was much safer than most of the cars teenage girls like, so I agreed. She and Darcy were very popular at school, always had friends, and this way their rivals could travel together. Later, I thought that her choice had a lot to do with Shauna, who had driven a car very similar to the one my daughter had chosen when she was younger. Darcy jumped up to me. Dad, guess what? Shauna wants to take us camping. Star is coming too. Can we? It was unexpected. Darcy was still a little girl, and I couldn't imagine her sleeping on the ground and getting dirty. Shauna leaned back in her chair and smiled. I smiled back. I haven't seen you in almost 2 years, and this is how you come back? Kidnap my kids and leave me all alone? Her smile grew even wider. You're welcome. Actually, I could use some help. Darcy is allowed to have 2 girlfriends, Marissa has 2, and Star has 2. 9 girls between the ages of 10 and 16 is probably more than I can handle. I doubt there's anything you can't handle. You run them like a military camp. I'm sure you'll be fine. Come with us, Dad. We need someone to carry our stuff and cook. You don't think we're going to do that, do you? After all, we're on holiday. My eldest daughter smiled as she finished her sentence. I went to order pizza, and they sat down at Darcy's laptop and started looking at expensive camping equipment. I had a feeling this was going to cost me a pretty penny. Shauna checked in on them every couple of days until we left to see what they had bought and whether we needed to take it with us. She made them take apart and reassemble 3 tents until they could do it with their eyes closed. Stacy was often with her, already showing that she had inherited her parents' brains and her mother's looks. I hadn't spoken to Charlie for several months. Several men had been coming to see her, and she always sent the girls on dates with me. I couldn't help thinking that she wasn't a good role model for them now, but the girls seemed unfazed by it. One day she called and wanted to talk to me about the girls. My alarm went off. It couldn't be good news. I met her at the front door. She got straight to the point. Stop turning my girls against me. I'm sick and tired of hearing about Shauna. She can do this, she can do that, blah, blah, blah. It took me a second to find my voice and a little longer to calm down and speak sensibly. At first, I laughed. And this is coming from a woman who's had a string of lovers over the last few months? You think girls are stupid enough to believe you were playing backgammon all night? Damn, you're such a hypocrite, Charlie. But you know what? I've tried not to get involved in your business, Charlie, so don't get involved in mine. You look awful. The expression wet and whore comes to mind. Get your ass to the gym, fix your hair, take care of yourself, at least for the girls. Anything else you want to say? Well, have a nice day and leave me alone. I walked away from her, shaken, and even more shaken by the fact that Shauna pulled up at that moment. The girls who ran out into the street when they saw Shauna applauded. It was funny to see Miss Super Control blush. Why did you do that? I smiled. Because I always wanted to, and believe me, it exceeded all my fantasies about you. To be honest, I wanted to do it to shock some people. And I would love to do it again to make sure that feeling wasn't a one-time thing. They left with the salads, and I put their steaks and baked potatoes on plates. After dinner, they hurried back into the house, leaving me to deal with the mess. I checked and double-checked everything on the list Shauna had given me. How could something that took so long to coordinate be fun? Shauna put Star and two of her friends on her quad bike, Marissa on hers, and Darcy and her friends on hers. It was pretty crowded. And me? I drove one of the support trucks, which was loaded with everything we needed. A support truck, according to Shauna. The trip took 4 hours, but it was worth it. We were completely isolated, with a 30-minute walk to the bathhouse. If they needed to go earlier, they would have to pretend to be bears. Shauna took charge, giving orders, and 4 tents sprang up on the ground. I was told to put the food in bear-proof containers, which didn't fill me with warmth. The refrigerators were locked in the cars for the night, and Shanna sprayed a large amount of bear repellent around the tents and cars. My next task was to assemble the charcoal grill we had brought with us. By lunchtime, everything was ready. Lunch consisted of cold appetizers and soda, and the girls giggled and looked out at the lake. While they were putting on their swimsuits, I returned to the pier, took the keys to the largest pontoon boat they had, and went through an hour-long briefing. The boat was huge and designed to hold 18 adults, so I decided that 9 girls and 2 adults would not fit. The next morning, we had to make breakfast. I was a decent grill cook, but Shauna took charge of breakfast, assigning tasks to the older girls. Soon, the air was filled with the smell of grilling sausages, and I chopped peppers, onions, and ham for scrambled eggs. Shauna brought out the largest cast iron skillet I had ever seen, heated the oil, and made the best pancakes I had ever tasted, made with buckwheat flour and fresh blueberries. We ate, and then Shauna asked everyone to help clean up, wash the dishes, collect the rubbish, put away the cutlery and food, until everything was as if we had never been there. Shauna grabbed a couple of fishing rods and took each girl to the lake, then taught them how to fish. There were lots of small bream in the cove, so each of them caught something. We took endless photos, and the girls kept telling me that we would soon visit places like the Academy or Dick's. We lazed around until almost lunchtime, then headed back to the marina. Shanna made them put on their trainers and throw shorts and t-shirts over their swimsuits. They decided it was because we were taking them to lunch at a restaurant in the marina. Strangely enough, they served Italian food, and we shared plates of spaghetti, ravioli, huge meatballs, and other dishes. Little girls know how to pile their plates high. We took them for a walk to the docks to look at the boats. They squealed when they realized the big boat was for them and climbed aboard, but whined when Shanna made them put on life jackets. "We have a student driver," she said, smiling. "Better not take any chances." We rocked back and forth until everyone was comfortable. The girls just giggled. "Relax, dear. I was a teenager with raging hormones just like you, but much later. They're just having fun. But if they come back, they're all yours." She thought about it for a second and walked out onto the deck. I heard it echo across the lake, and she came back, smiling and adjusting her top. I didn't say a word. We dropped anchor in the cove, and I discovered the best thing on the boat: a sliding board for jumping off the boat into the water, and a small pump that pumped water onto the board to make it easier. Soon they were going off the board 2 at a time, screaming as they flew through the air. One girl stood aside, and it turned out she couldn't swim. The others sympathetically suggested she stop, which was quite mature for such young children, but Shauna saved the day. She carried the girl to the stern of the boat and returned a few minutes later with a life jacket. Shauna climbed the ladder with her, and they jumped into the water together. I don't know who screamed louder, Shauna or Vicky. The cove was quite shallow with a beautiful beach, and we pulled up to shore when they got tired of tying up the boats. We chopped some wood, got out the cooler, and soon they were grilling sausages and marshmallows while sipping soda. Shauna kept her distance from Vicky, talking quietly to her. And after a few minutes, I looked up when Vicky's dog swam past me. Later, we sat in the boat with our legs dangling over the side by side, when I leaned over and kissed her gently on the cheek. Her smile lit up the twilight. What for? For helping Vicky. You're going to be a super mom. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she jumped out of the boat and swam out into the bay, looking at the canal. When she finally came back, I helped her untangle the girls, cleaned up after them, made sure the fire was out, and we slowly swam back to the dock. Did I hurt you somehow? If so, know that I didn't mean to, and I'm sorry. She stroked my cheek and smiled a tender smile. You didn't say anything bad, dear. You just gave me a compliment that no one has ever given me before. I just didn't know how to take it. She pressed herself against me, holding my hand. I couldn't remember the last time I had felt so good. We had a light dinner prepared by the girls, who insisted that Shauna and I rest. So we settled into folding chairs and snuggled up together. Shauna told me about her new job. She had become a co-owner of a security firm with 3 of her colleagues and seemed to be doing well, although the long hours and travel weren't as enjoyable as she had thought they would be. I told her about selling the company, which surprised her. It doesn't bother me. It all started because I just wanted to help a friend, and Harry and June more or less forced me into it. They're good, loyal friends, but I didn't really like it, and the money didn't mean much to me. I just wanted to have enough money to provide a good life for my family and then for my girls. She sighed and took my hand. I know you don't show it, but Charlie hurt you more than you can show. I was married myself. I loved that man and considered him my life partner until I came back from a business trip and found out he was divorcing me because of what I thought was, good friend, who was 6 months pregnant. At least he had the decency to wait until I got back, but it still hurt. I was a little shocked. She had never mentioned it before, and I felt sad. Charlie had taught me a lot about how to deal with pain, so I could understand him. We lay in our chairs until dinner was served. I was really glad my girls had learned how to use the grill because most of the others had no idea how to do it. Shauna and I washed the dishes while the girls sat around the fire singing along to one of Marissa's friends on the guitar. It was nice to sit in the dark when no one appreciated your skills. We tried rapping on the pontoon, and the girls insisted that we buy it as a birthday present for ourselves. I didn't resist the suggestion at all. Lying in my tent in the middle of the desert, I realized that I hadn't been this happy in a very, very long time, and I fell asleep with a smile on my face. The girls picked us up and we set off to see the world. When everything was packed up, we looked around to make sure we left the campsite in better shape than we found it, and drove away with memories that will last a lifetime. I'm sure it was all planned. Marissa got behind the wheel of Shanna's SUV. Another girl got behind the wheel of hers, and Shanna rode with me. We drove, holding hands, not feeling the need to talk. An hour's drive from home, Shauna finally spoke. To be honest, I've been thinking about this for years. We could go home, date, dance, hide our feelings, but I'll get straight to the point and offer you a few options. You will love me. You will marry me. You'll give me a few more children that I'll love besides Star and our girls. And one thing is non-negotiable. You'll spend the rest of your life with me. If you don't like it, I'll get in the car when we get back, drive away, and you'll never see me again. Oh, and by the way, I love you. What do you think? Well, let me think about it. Okay, I've thought about it. Tomorrow, we'll go to a jewelry shop and pick out a ring for you. And then or rather you, will go look for a house. I refuse to start a family in my ex's basement. So the sooner you find our house, the sooner we can settle down. When you make your decision, maybe you can take the girls to a psychologist. Would you mind? Oh, and to make it official, Shanna Hunter, will you marry me? She sat there for a few seconds, tears welling up in her eyes. Then the tears were replaced by a smug expression. She texted someone and asked me to stop. I thought the girl driving Marissa's Jeep was going to crash. She pulled over so quickly. Shauna jumped out of the car, ran over to us and pulled me out before I could get out myself. Marissa still seemed to be holding her phone, and I looked at the message. The operation was a success. Great job, guys. I looked at her, and she smiled, blushing. "Oh, you weren't supposed to see that," she said, and hugged me again. I sighed, closed my computer, and thought about it. Today was my 60th birthday, my last day at work. I was retiring. I had made a lot of money and it was time. Darcy turned out to be good at maths and business, so she started working for Harry when she got her MBA. And 3 years ago, she moved in with him to learn the business from the ground up before taking over as CEO. Marissa followed in my footsteps, earning an engineering degree and specializing in bridge construction, a career that took her all over the world. She found a life partner, and they adopted 2 little girls, my only granddaughters to date. Darcy was still married to her job, although she seemed to have grown very close to an engineer her sister had introduced her to. My thoughts were interrupted by my wife, who entered the room carrying our twin daughters. They were about to finish school and had chosen different colleges, wanting to live apart for a change. Shauna was right, as always, when she told Charlie that we would have beautiful chocolate-colored children. Shauna retired on our wedding day and took over the management of the company, then sold her share to others when she found out she was pregnant. Our company was far from their only client. Harry's empire had grown huge, and more than once, information obtained from them had significantly changed business decisions. She helped me gather photos on the table, pausing at one of our wedding photos where she was with her groom. June was the maid of honor, and 9 bridesmaids, 3 16-year-olds, 3 13-year-olds, and 3 10-year-olds, all in long dresses, elegant and beautiful, in dresses showing off combat boots, held a sign. Operation successful. We returned to our house on the lake, the very lake where we had spent all those years. 2 huge pontoons and a speedboat were moored at the dock, and all the guys from that trip were frequent visitors, bringing their families and talking about Operation Lake, as they called it. I doubted we would have any privacy, but that was the way it was. What happened to Charlie? I didn't care, except how it would affect my children. But the house went to her. To say she was unhappy would be an understatement, but she soon realized that her complaints were falling on deaf ears and stopped bothering. What really annoyed her was that there was a house for sale a block away, and Shauna decided that was where we were going to build our family. She spent $500,000 on a house that had been featured in magazines. It had a full-size swimming pool and a hot tub, which we enjoyed until they wore out in the first year. Custody of the girls was never an issue because they lived within walking distance of both houses, although they preferred to stay with us most of the time, especially after their sisters were born. After all, they were almost grown up by then. Charlie got married twice more. The first marriage fell apart after 2 years because, surprise, surprise, he got caught with a woman. Fortunately, he was smart enough to sign a prenuptial agreement, so he was protected. Out of curiosity, Brenda and Barb tracked down his wife and offered her a job. I heard that the second house is open and the basement is used as a playroom, so maybe she got what she wanted all these years. We see her from time to time, but she's quiet, still harboring resentment. Time hasn't been as kind to her as it could have been, and age is taking its toll. Old habits die hard, I guess, and she still prefers the shopping center to the gym. Dad, hurry up! If we leave now, we'll still have time to go swimming in the lake for an hour or two. I smiled, picked up the box, and left with my family to begin the best part of the journey of my life. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for the next video.